from the archives. My dear friends, today as we stand together in this moment, we turn our gaze upon the archives of our past. These archives are not mere records of time gone by, but living testaments to the struggles, and sacrifices that have brought us to where we are today. They are the memories of those who fought with unwavering resolve for justice, for freedom, for dignity. Honoring the past is not just an act of remembrance, it is a solemn commitment to acknowledging the struggles, sacrifices, and triumphs that have shaped the course of our history. It is a call to understand where we come from in order to better navigate the path before us. The past is a teacher, its lessons etched into the stories of those who fought, who resisted, and who dreamed of a better world. These lessons offer us the wisdom and the strength to confront the challenges of our own time. The history we honor is not merely about dates, events, or the names of great leaders. It is the story of countless ordinary individuals who, in the face of hardship, found extraordinary courage. It is the tale of people whose actions, though often unsung, built the foundation of the society we live in today. They were not heroes in the traditional sense, but in their perseverance, their dignity, and their commitment to a cause greater than themselves, they embodied the very spirit of heroism. Their struggles are interwoven with the very fabric of our collective identity, and in honoring them, we ensure that their contributions are never forgotten. History has a way of reminding us that the past is never truly gone. The events that shape the world we live in today continue to resonate in the present, in the lives we lead, and the struggles we face. In honoring the past, we give voice to those whose experiences have been silenced or overlooked. We ensure that the stories of resistance and resilience, of hope and despair, are preserved for future generations. This act of preservation is not just about remembering, it is about creating a bridge between the past and the present, allowing the wisdom of those who came before us to guide us as we face the challenges of our own time. The act of honoring the past is also an act of gratitude. It is a way of saying thank you to those who fought for our freedoms, who laid the groundwork for the society we enjoy today, and who gave of themselves so that we might live in a better world. We honor their memory not by simply remembering their names, but by living lives that reflect the values they fought for. We honor them by working to ensure that the progress they achieved is not reversed, that the rights they won are not taken away, and that the hope they instilled in future generations continues to burn bright. But honoring the past is not just a passive act. It is an active process that requires us to engage with history in a meaningful way. It is not enough to remember, we must understand. We must seek to comprehend the forces that shaped the events of the past, the people who shaped those events, and the impact those events continue to have on our world today. This understanding is essential if we are to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past, and if we are to build a more just and equitable society. Moreover, honoring the past requires us to recognize the diversity of experiences that make up our collective history. The past is not a single, unified narrative, it is a mosaic of stories, each with its own complexities and contradictions. It is the story of the oppressed and the oppressor, of the victor and the defeated. To honor the past is to honor all of these stories, not just the ones that align with our current values or beliefs. It is to recognize that the truth of history is often multifaceted and complex, and that we must approach it with humility and openness. The past also teaches us the importance of resilience. When we look at the struggles of those who came before us, we see the power of the human spirit in the face of adversity. We see the ability of individuals and communities to endure hardship and to keep moving forward, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Honoring the past means recognizing that resilience is not a trait reserved for a select few, but a quality that exists within all of us. It is through this resilience that we can face the challenges of the present and the future, just as those who came before us did. Finally, in honoring the past, we are reminded of the importance of passing on its lessons to future generations. We must ensure that the history we honor today is not lost to time. It is our duty to teach the next generation about the struggles, sacrifices, and victories of those who have shaped the world we live in. We must ensure that they understand the importance of justice, equality, and freedom, and that they carry forward the torch of progress and change. In this way, honoring the past becomes an act of preparation for the future, as we equip those who will follow us with the knowledge and wisdom they need to continue the work that we began. In the end, to honor the past is to recognize that we are part of something larger than ourselves. It is to understand that the actions of today are connected to the struggles of yesterday and will shape the world of tomorrow. It is to ensure that the stories of those who came before us are not forgotten, that their sacrifices are not in vain, and that their dreams of a better world continue to inspire us as we work toward a future that honors their legacy. A legacy of sacrifice and resilience is not simply the remembrance of past struggles, it is the embodiment of the strength, courage, and unwavering spirit that individuals and communities have shown throughout history in the face of overwhelming adversity. It is the story of those who, when confronted with hardships that seemed insurmountable, chose to resist, to fight, and to endure. This legacy lives on in the actions, decisions, and values passed down through generations. It reminds us that the path to freedom, justice, and equality is not a simple one, but one paved with immense sacrifice and the resilience to overcome whatever obstacles stand in the way. Sacrifice is a word often associated with loss, with the giving up of something precious in pursuit of a greater cause. For many throughout history, this meant giving up personal safety, security, and comfort, often for ideals that would not be fully realized within their lifetime. In many cases, sacrifice meant putting oneself in harm's way, fighting for a future that was uncertain. The sacrifices made by countless individuals in the face of systemic oppression, inequality, and injustice were acts of profound courage. They understood that the fight they engaged in was not just for their own freedom, but for the freedom of future generations. The legacy they left behind is not just in the tangible victories they achieved, but in the very principles they upheld, principles that continue to inspire and guide us today. The resilience of these individuals cannot be understated. Resilience is not simply about enduring hardship, it is about transforming adversity into strength, facing every challenge with determination, and refusing to surrender in the face of injustice. The history of struggle, particularly in the context of colonization, apartheid, or any other form of tyranny, is littered with stories of resilience. The resilience of those who fought against apartheid in South Africa, those who resisted colonial rule across the African continent, and those who stood firm in the face of racial discrimination in the United States, among many others, speaks to the power of the human spirit. They faced immense challenges: imprisonment, exile, torture, and even death, yet they did not falter. They found strength in their cause, in their communities, and in the belief that a better world was possible. In the fight for justice, sacrifice and resilience were often intertwined. Those who stood up for what was right knew that their actions came with great personal cost, yet they persisted. For many, the road to justice was not one that would lead to immediate change, but was instead a long, painful journey. And yet, these individuals endured, driven by a deep sense of purpose and an unshakable belief that what they were fighting for was worth the price they paid. The legacy of their resilience is seen in the freedoms we enjoy today, in the equality we strive toward, and in the institutions that protect our rights. These freedoms were not freely given, they were earned through immense sacrifice and steadfast resilience. But resilience does not only live in the actions of great leaders and public figures. It is found in the everyday lives of ordinary people who, despite their struggles, continue to persevere. It is seen in the mothers and fathers who work tirelessly to provide for their families, in the workers who fought for better conditions, and in the communities that came together to protect one another. It is seen in the courage of those who, in the face of systemic oppression, continue to hope and dream for a future where equality was not just an aspiration but a reality. These individuals were not always celebrated or remembered in the history books, but their resilience was no less powerful or important. The legacy of sacrifice and resilience also serves as a reminder of the importance of community. In times of adversity, it is often the strength of the collective that sustains individuals. The resilience shown by communities in the face of oppression was built on solidarity, on shared struggle, and on a common commitment to change. The fight for justice is never a solitary endeavor. It is a collective effort, one in which individuals come together, support one another, and work as one toward a common goal. Communities that resisted oppression did so with the knowledge that their fight was not just for their own benefit, but for the benefit of their children, their grandchildren, and the generations to come. In the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges, these communities found strength in their unity and resilience in their collective action. Moreover, the legacy of sacrifice and resilience is not one that fades with time. It is a legacy that endures, one that is passed from one generation to the next. The stories of those who fought for justice continue to inspire new generations to take up the mantle and continue the work that was started long ago. It is up to us to ensure that this legacy remains alive, to honor the sacrifices that were made by carrying forward the principles of justice, equality, and freedom for which they stood. It is up to us to ensure that the resilience shown by those before us becomes our own, that we too rise up in the face of injustice, and that we too contribute to building a world that is fairer and more just. This legacy is not just one of reflection, but one of action. The sacrifices made by those who came before us were not made so that we could sit idly by. They were made so that we would rise, so that we would continue to fight, so that we would carry their vision forward. It is in this continued fight for justice, for equality, for human dignity, that we honor their legacy. The resilience they showed is not a passive trait, but one that demands active engagement in the ongoing struggle for a better world. In the end, the legacy of sacrifice and resilience is one that belongs to all of us. It is the legacy of every individual who has ever fought for what is right, for what is just, and for what is true. It is the legacy of those who have shown us that the road to justice is long and difficult, but that with sacrifice and resilience we can overcome any obstacle. It is a legacy that teaches us that, no matter how hard the struggle may seem, we must never lose sight of the hope for a better tomorrow. Learning from the archives is more than an exercise in studying history. It is a profound process of engaging with the past to understand the lessons, the mistakes, and the triumphs that have shaped our present and will influence our future. The archives are not simply collections of documents, photographs, or artifacts. They are the living records of human experience, a window into the struggles, sacrifices, and achievements of those who came before us. These records offer us a powerful opportunity to learn, to reflect, and to grow as individuals and as societies. By delving into these archives, we are not just revisiting the past, but actively engaging with it, seeking wisdom, inspiration, and guidance. The past holds within it invaluable lessons, many of which have been etched into history through the experiences of those who faced injustice, inequality, and oppression. When we look into the archives, we uncover the stories of those who fought for their rights, for their dignity, and for the future of their communities. In these stories, we find the strength to confront our own challenges and the courage to stand up for what is right. Learning from the archives allows us to understand the forces that shape the world we live in and to recognize the patterns that have persisted across time. It is through this understanding that we are able to confront the issues of our present, armed with the wisdom of those who came before us. One of the most important lessons we learn from the archives is the complexity of history. History is rarely a straightforward narrative of good versus evil, of right versus wrong. The archives reveal the intricate web of human experiences, filled with contradictions, struggles, and compromises. When we look into the past, we are often faced with uncomfortable truths, with stories that challenge our preconceived notions or force us to confront the darker aspects of our collective experience. Yet, it is through confronting these uncomfortable truths that we gain a deeper understanding of the world around us. The archives teach us that history is not a simple tale, but a complex and multifaceted journey that demands careful analysis, humility, and reflection. By learning from the archives, We are also reminded of the importance of empathy. The voices that speak to us from these records come from a time, a place, and a context that may be vastly different from our own. Yet, through these stories, we are able to connect with the experiences of others, to understand their pain, their joy, and their hopes. The archives offer us the chance to walk in the shoes of those who lived before us, to see the world through their eyes, and to learn from their struggles and their triumphs. In doing so, we expand our capacity for empathy, recognizing that the experiences of others are as real and as significant as our own. This empathy is crucial in our ongoing efforts to build a more just and compassionate society, one that values the dignity of all people, regardless of their background or circumstances. Learning from the archives also teaches us the importance of perseverance. In many of the records we encounter, we see the perseverance of individuals and communities who, in the face of great adversity, refused to give up. Whether it was the fight for civil rights, the struggle for independence, or the battle for social justice, the archives reveal the enduring human spirit that continues to push forward even when the path ahead seems impossible. These stories of perseverance are not just historical footnotes, they are reminders of what is possible when we refuse to be defeated by the challenges before us. By learning from the resilience of those who came before us, we are inspired to face our own challenges with the same strength and determination. The archives also remind us of the power of collective action. Many of the most significant changes in history were not brought about by a single individual, but by the collective efforts of many people working together toward a common goal. The records of social movements, of protests, of grassroots campaigns, and of labor struggles show us that when people come together, they can bring about lasting change. The archives teach us that our individual efforts are important, but that we must also recognize the power of solidarity, of working together, and of building movements that are larger than ourselves. It is in these collective efforts that true social transformation takes place. By learning from the archives, we are reminded that change does not happen in isolation but through the collective will of those who refuse to accept injustice and inequality. In addition, the archives are a reminder of the importance of accountability. They hold a mirror up to society, revealing not just the actions of individuals and leaders, but the systems and structures that enable oppression, discrimination, and exploitation to thrive. By examining these records, we can better understand how power is wielded, how injustices are perpetuated, and how systems of inequality are maintained. The archives force us to confront the uncomfortable reality that many of the injustices we face today are not isolated incidents, but part of a larger historical pattern. Learning from these records compels us to take responsibility for the actions of the past, to hold ourselves accountable for the ways in which we may perpetuate these injustices in the present, and to work toward dismantling the systems that continue to uphold them. The lessons we learn from the archives are not confined to the past, they have profound relevance to the challenges we face today. The struggles for civil rights, gender equality, environmental justice, and economic fairness that are recorded in the archives are struggles that continue to this day. By learning from the successes and failures of past movements, we can refine our strategies, avoid past mistakes, and build on the successes of those who came before us. The archives show us that progress is never linear, that victories are often hard-won, and that the fight for justice is ongoing. They teach us that we must remain vigilant, that we must continue to push forward, and that we must never lose sight of the vision for a better, more equitable world. Finally, learning from the archives is a call to action. The records of the past are not just meant to be studied in isolation, but to be used as a guide for shaping the future. By learning from the archives, we equip ourselves with the knowledge, the insight, and the inspiration necessary to address the issues of our time. The archives are not passive collections, they are living, breathing entities that speak to us across time. Their lessons demand our attention, our reflection, and most importantly, our action. By learning from the archives, we honor the struggles of those who came before us and take up the mantle of continuing the work they began. In the end, the archives are not just a window into the past, they are a mirror that reflects our present and a guide that points us toward the future. Through them, we learn, we grow, and we are reminded of our responsibility to build a more just and equitable world. Unity and reconciliation are powerful forces that shape the future of nations and communities. They are not simply ideals, but necessary actions that emerge from the painful and often tumultuous struggles of the past. Unity does not mean the absence of differences, nor does reconciliation suggest that all wounds are immediately healed. Rather, they are the ongoing processes through which societies can come together, heal, and build a collective future based on mutual respect, shared goals, and an understanding of the injustices that have come before. At the heart of unity and reconciliation is the recognition that division, whether created by race, class, ethnicity, religion, or history, is a force that harms everyone. The history of humankind is filled with examples of conflict, exclusion, and violence driven by these divisions. But history also shows that through intentional efforts to build bridges, to understand, and to forgive, societies have been able to find a path forward. Unity and reconciliation are the antidotes to the poison of division and conflict. They require courage, humility, and a willingness to embrace others not as adversaries, but as partners in the shared journey toward peace. Unity, in its truest form, is not about erasing differences or forcing uniformity. It is about finding common ground while respecting the diversity that exists within a community or nation. It is an acknowledgement that each individual, each group, has unique experiences, struggles, and contributions. True unity arises when people come together, despite their differences, recognizing that the strength of a community lies in the diversity of its members. It means embracing the idea that we are all interconnected, that each person's well-being is linked to the well-being of others. Unity requires understanding that the progress of one cannot be sustained without the progress of all. In the process of reconciliation, unity takes on even greater significance. Reconciliation is not simply about forgiveness, it is about healing. It is about restoring relationships that have been broken, rebuilding trust that has been shattered, and finding a way to move forward from the wounds of the past. Reconciliation is essential for societies that have been torn apart by conflict, whether internal or external, and it requires confronting uncomfortable truths, acknowledging past wrongs, and seeking justice. Without reconciliation, the legacy of division and pain will persist, haunting future generations and preventing true peace from taking root. Reconciliation is never easy. It involves facing the deepest scars of history, acknowledging the harm caused, and providing a space for those who have suffered to express their pain and grief. It also involves those who have perpetrated harm to take responsibility for their actions and to seek ways to repair the damage done. This process is not immediate and often involves many difficult conversations, confrontations with truth, and a willingness to listen. Reconciliation cannot be rushed, for true healing requires time, reflection, and the collective will to move beyond the past. However, it is essential to remember that reconciliation is not about forgetting the past or pretending that the wrongs committed never occurred. True reconciliation is about understanding the depth of the harm caused, the legacy of injustice that has lingered, and the collective responsibility to address the ongoing effects of those wrongs. It is about creating a shared narrative where all voices are heard, where no one's history is marginalized, and where the wounds of the past are recognized and acknowledged. This is the foundation upon which healing can begin. Unity and reconciliation, when pursued with sincerity, can become powerful tools for transformation. They allow communities to transform the divisions of the past into opportunities for collaboration and collective progress. Through reconciliation, societies can address the deep-seated wounds that divide them and turn those wounds into catalysts for positive change. The process of reconciliation often requires looking beyond one's own hurt and seeing the shared humanity in others. It involves moving from a place of vengeance or bitterness to one of empathy and understanding. Reconciliation helps to foster a spirit of cooperation and shared responsibility. In doing so, it opens the door for a future where the mistakes of the past do not have to define the present and the future. The path to unity and reconciliation is challenging and often fraught with setbacks. There will be moments when it seems as though the past is too painful to face, when the wounds seem too deep to heal. There will be moments when anger, resentment, and fear threaten to pull people back into the darkness of division. But these are the very moments when unity and reconciliation are needed the most. It is during these moments that we must remind ourselves of the power of coming together, of listening to each other, of recognizing that even in our differences, we share a common humanity. Unity and reconciliation are not simply ideals to strive for, they are necessities for the survival of communities and nations. Without unity, division will continue to erode the social fabric, creating further rifts and perpetuating cycles of conflict. Without reconciliation, societies will be unable to heal from past wrongs, and the scars of history will continue to haunt the present. It is only through unity and reconciliation that true peace can be achieved. These are the processes through which societies can move from a place of brokenness and pain to one of understanding, healing, and shared hope for the future. As we look to the future, we must remember that unity and reconciliation are ongoing processes, not one-time events. They require constant effort, patience, and commitment. The work of building a united and reconciled society is never finished. It is a continuous journey that demands the participation of everyone. By embracing unity and reconciliation, we honor the struggles of the past, we heal the wounds of the present, and we build a future that reflects our shared humanity, a future where all people are treated with dignity, respect, and understanding. Justice and equality are two fundamental pillars that support the structure of a fair and prosperous society. They are ideals that have been sought after for generations, shaping political movements, social reforms, and individual actions. Both justice and equality are deeply intertwined, as justice is the means through which equality is achieved and sustained. Without justice, equality becomes an empty promise, and without equality, justice remains an unattainable goal. These concepts, while simple in theory, are often challenging in practice, requiring a continual commitment to fairness, the dismantling of barriers, and the establishment of systems that ensure every individual is treated with dignity and respect. At its core, justice means the fair and impartial treatment of all individuals. It demands that people are held accountable for their actions and that their rights and freedoms are protected by the law. Justice requires that individuals are given what they deserve, whether it is in the form of punishment for wrongdoing or the protection of their rights in society. But justice is not merely about following the law, it is about ensuring that the law is just in itself and serves the interests of all members of society, particularly the marginalized and vulnerable. A just society is one where the law is not used as a tool of oppression or exclusion, but as a means to promote fairness, equity, and opportunity for all. Equality, on the other hand, is the principle that all individuals, regardless of their background, identity, or circumstances, should have the same opportunities and be treated with the same respect. It is the recognition that no one should be discriminated against based on race, gender, religion, socioeconomic status, or any other characteristic that makes them different. True equality means that everyone has access to the same resources, rights, and opportunities, and that no one is placed at a disadvantage because of factors beyond their control. It is the idea that every individual, regardless of their origins, deserves the chance to live a full and dignified life. Justice and equality are both essential to creating a society in which individuals can thrive. When these principles are in place, people are able to live without fear of persecution or prejudice, and they can contribute to society with their full potential. But the reality is that many societies have not fully realized justice or equality. Systems of discrimination, inequality, and injustice persist in many parts of the world, and for these systems to change, there must be a fundamental shift in how justice and equality are understood and applied. The struggle for justice and equality is ongoing, as history has shown us that these ideals are not easily achieved or maintained. Throughout history, there have been countless movements dedicated to challenging unjust systems and fighting for equal rights. These movements, whether in the form of civil rights struggles, women's suffrage, labor rights, or LGBTQ rights, have highlighted the gap between the ideals of justice and equality and the reality of exclusion and oppression. These movements have been critical in pushing societies toward greater justice, but they also demonstrate the deeply entrenched barriers that often stand in the way of true equality. One of the most pressing challenges to justice and equality is the persistence of systemic inequality. Even in societies that claim to uphold the principles of justice and equality, deeply embedded structures of power often perpetuate inequality. These systems are often invisible to those who benefit from them, but are painfully apparent to those who are marginalized. Whether in the form of unequal access to education, healthcare, housing, or employment, systemic inequality creates a cycle in which certain groups are denied the opportunities they need to succeed, while others continue to benefit from the advantages afforded by their social position. For justice and equality to be realized, these systems must be dismantled, and new structures must be created that ensure fair treatment for all. Another significant challenge is the intersectionality of inequality. Many individuals face multiple layers of discrimination and disadvantage based on a combination of factors such as race, gender, class, disability, and more. A woman of color, for example, may face both racial and gender-based discrimination, creating a compounded effect that makes it even more difficult for her to access the same opportunities as others. This intersectionality must be recognized in the fight for justice and equality, as it is not enough to address one form of discrimination without considering how different forms of injustice intersect and affect individuals in complex ways. The fight for justice and equality also requires a commitment to empathy and understanding. It is not enough to simply acknowledge that injustice exists. We must work to understand the lived experiences of those who have been affected by it. This means listening to the voices of those who have been oppressed, understanding the historical and social contexts that have created inequality, and taking action to change the systems that perpetuate these disparities. It requires us to recognize that justice is not just a legal concept, but a moral imperative, and equality is not just a goal, but a process that requires active participation. Achieving justice and equality is a long-term process, and it demands the involvement of everyone. While legal reforms and policies are important, they are not enough on their own. There must also be a cultural shift toward valuing diversity, promoting inclusivity, and ensuring that every individual has the chance to thrive. This involves changing attitudes, confronting prejudice, and holding individuals and institutions accountable for discriminatory practices. It requires a collective effort from governments, institutions, communities, and individuals to create a society where justice and equality are not just ideals, but lived realities for all people. Justice and equality are also interconnected with freedom. Without justice, there can be no true freedom, as individuals will always be constrained by oppressive systems that limit their opportunities and rights. Without equality, freedom is hollow, as it does not extend to all people equally. The fight for justice and equality is ultimately a fight for human dignity, for the right of every person to be treated with respect and to have the opportunity to lead a fulfilling life. In conclusion, justice and equality are essential to the creation of a fair and just society. They are not merely abstract concepts, but the foundation upon which freedom, opportunity, and human dignity rest. Achieving these ideals requires an ongoing commitment to fairness, empathy, and the dismantling of systems of inequality. The struggle for justice and equality is far from over, but each step forward is a victory for all of humanity. It is a reminder that while the journey is difficult, the pursuit of a just and equal society is worth every effort. The promise of the future is a beacon that guides us forward, inspiring hope and motivating action. It represents the vision of what could be, shaped by our dreams, our values, and the work we do today. The future is not a singular path, but a vast expanse of possibilities, some shaped by our intentions, others by forces beyond our control. Nevertheless, it is a promise that rests in our hands, the promise of a better world, one where challenges are met with resolve, where opportunities are accessible to all, and where justice and equality are realized in every corner of society. As we look toward the future, we see both daunting challenges and profound potential. The promise of the future is not one of inevitability, but of possibility, an open road that calls for courage, imagination, and persistence. At the heart of this promise is the belief that the future does not have to repeat the mistakes of the past. The struggles, injustices, and inequities that have marred the course of history can be transformed into the lessons and insights that will shape a more equitable world. The future promises progress, but it also demands responsibility. Progress is not merely technological advancement or economic growth, it is the advancement of human potential. The promise of the future lies in the expansion of knowledge, in the growth of wisdom, and in the development of our collective capacity for empathy and cooperation. It promises a world where education, healthcare, and basic rights are no longer privileges, but accessible to all, where every individual has the opportunity to contribute to society and fulfill their potential. In this future, progress is defined not by the accumulation of wealth or power by a few, but by the improvement of the well-being of all people, particularly the most vulnerable. Yet the promise of the future is not without its challenges. As we look ahead, we must confront the reality that our world faces pressing issues: climate change, global inequality, political division, and the erosion of trust in institutions. These challenges threaten to undo the progress we have made and complicate the path forward. But it is precisely in the face of these challenges that the promise of the future is most needed. The future calls us to respond with resilience and innovation. It demands that we address the root causes of the issues we face, that we work together to find solutions that are sustainable and inclusive. In this way, the future is not something to fear, but something to be actively shaped by our actions today. The promise of the future is also a call to solidarity. It is a recognition that the challenges we face are not isolated to any one group, country, or community, but are shared by all of humanity. In an interconnected world, the problems of one are the problems of many. The future promises a world where we work together, not just for our own interests, but for the common good. It is a future where collaboration replaces division, where collective action overcomes individualism, and where the prosperity of one is tied to the prosperity of all. This vision of the future calls on us to build global alliances, to share resources, and to ensure that our progress does not come at the expense of others, especially those who have been historically marginalized. This promise also extends to the personal and communal realms of life. The future promises that the legacy we leave will be one of hope, opportunity, and progress. Each generation carries the responsibility of ensuring that the world we leave behind is better than the one we inherited. This promise is not simply about achieving greater material wealth or technological breakthroughs, but about fostering a culture of compassion, fairness, and justice. It is a promise that the future will not only be brighter because of our achievements, but because of our willingness to confront our flaws, to acknowledge our mistakes, and to work together to rectify them.